She called the cops and screamed, "Arrest him. He's trespassing in our lake cabin." But I was standing on the porch of my own property, holding the keys that had been in my family for years. Her son was behind her, puffing his chest out like he already owned the place. He pointed at me and shouted, "Mom, tell him to leave now. I want this cabin. Dad said we deserve it more than anyone." I didn't answer right away. I just stared at them, calm, even though my blood was boiling. The Karen smirked, holding up a piece of paper that looked like some fake notice. "According to HOA rules," she said, "this cabin falls under our management. And since you haven't complied with the new regulations, you can't stay here anymore. Pack your things." Her son laughed. "Yeah, go ahead and leave. We're moving in tonight." I almost laughed, too. But I didn't. I just asked, slow and steady, "You sure you want to push this?" Karen waved her hand, already pulling out her phone. "Oh, don't worry. The police are already on their way. And when they arrive, you'll be dragged out of here in handcuffs." Inside me, a fire lit up. I had dealt with people like this before. But this time, it wasn't going to end the way she thought. Because what she didn't know, what they couldn't even imagine, was that this lake cabin wasn't just a family getaway. It was part of something much bigger, something federal. Something they were about to regret messing with. The sound of sirens grew louder in the distance. And the son grinned like he'd already won. But I stood there, calm as stone, waiting for the real game to begin. The police car screeched to a stop, lights flashing against the water. 2 officers jumped out, but before they could even take a step, Karen ran at them, waving her arms like a lunatic. "That's him," she shouted, pointing at me. "He's a trespasser. Arrest him now before he destroys our property." Her son added fuel, yelling, "He threatened us. He said he'd hurt us if we didn't leave." The officers looked at me, handcuffs ready. One of them barked, "Sir, step down from the porch." I didn't move. Instead, I crossed my arms and asked, "Before you put your hands on me, you sure you got the right guy?" Karen laughed, almost hysterical. "Of course they do. I'm HOA president. And I know exactly who belongs here. And who doesn't. He's lying about everything. This cabin is under HOA control now." The cops started walking closer, but then I pulled something out of my jacket. A badge. Not a toy, not fake. The son's smug smile instantly cracked when the silver caught the siren light. The officers froze. "Wait, you're..." I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Federal ops. This cabin isn't just a lake retreat. It's classified property under surveillance. And now, congratulations. Both of you just interfered with a federal operation." Karen's mouth dropped open. Her son stammered, What do you mean? That's not possible. You're just some guy." I cut him off. "Some guy? Then why do these officers know exactly who I am now?" The cops exchanged quick, nervous glances. They knew me. And Karen? She suddenly looked like a balloon deflating, her voice trembling. This has to be some mistake. We were just..." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "You just called the cops on the federal government. And you think this ends with me leaving?" Her son's cocky grin was gone. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Karen's fear lasted only a few seconds before her arrogance kicked back in. She suddenly snapped at the cops, "Don't just stand there. He's faking it. That badge is probably stolen. Arrest him before he runs." Her son jumped in, shouting louder, "He threatened me. He said if I told anyone about this cabin, he'd kill me. He even grabbed his own neck and coughed, pretending I had just choked him." The officers looked torn. One of them muttered, "Ma'am, this is serious. If that's a real federal badge." But Karen wouldn't stop. She yanked a folder from her oversized purse and shoved it in their faces. "Look. I have all the HOA reports right here. It says no one can own property without our approval." He forged his documents. He's squatting. The other officer frowned, flipping through the papers. "This just looks like..." HOA meeting minutes. Karen shrieked, "It's legal. It's binding. You're cops, you have to enforce it." That's when I saw the real trap. Karen wasn't just throwing a tantrum. She was trying to spin the story so hard that if the officers hesitated, they might slap cuffs on me just to sort things out later. She wanted me humiliated in front of everyone, dragged away from my own cabin. I stayed calm, even when one cop reached for his cuffs again. I asked in a steady voice, "So you're telling me you're about to arrest a federal agent on the word of an HOA president and her spoiled son?" The officers froze again. One of them swallowed hard. But Karen pushed forward like a bulldozer, screaming, "Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying. Do your job." Her son smirked, whispering to her loud enough for me to hear, "Once he's gone, we can finally move in tonight." That line hit me like a nail in the chest. Not because I was worried about the cabin, but because it exposed what they were really after. This wasn't about rules. It wasn't about law. It was pure greed. I glanced at the officers and said, "All right. If you're confused about who's telling the truth, why don't we let the security system decide?" Karen's head snapped toward me. "What security system?" I allowed myself the faintest smile. "The one recording everything since the moment you stepped onto this property." Karen's face went pale, like all the blood drained out at once. "You're bluffing," she snapped, but her voice cracked halfway through. Her son tried to back her up, puffing his chest again. "Yeah, right. There's no cameras here. We checked the place. You're just trying to scare us." I tilted my head, still calm. "Check the place. That's interesting. So you admit you've been on my property before tonight?" The officers exchanged sharp looks. One of them reached for his radio. Karen panicked and shouted, "No. Don't listen to him. He's twisting our words. There's no proof of anything." That's when I raised my phone, tapped the screen, and mirrored the feed to a small portable monitor I kept inside the cabin. A grainy black and white image appeared instantly. Karen and her son earlier that week, creeping around my porch, prying at the lock. Her son kicking at the door while she whispered, "Don't worry, once the cops are on our side, this cabin is ours." The officers froze. One muttered, "That's clear as day." Karen stumbled back, waving her arms. "No. That's fake. He edited that. It's not real." Her son cursed under his breath, realizing his own voice was recorded too. "Mom, just shut it." But Karen couldn't stop digging deeper. She lunged at me, trying to snatch the monitor out of my hand. "Give me that. You can't record us without permission. This whole thing is illegal." I didn't even move. One of the cops caught her by the arm and held her back. The other officer said firmly, "Ma'am, that's enough. This footage proves trespassing and attempted property theft." Her son tried one last desperate move, pointing at the cops. "You don't understand, my dad is on the HOA board. He'll ruin all of you if you touch us." I finally let my comm crack just a little, leaning close so he could hear me. "Kid, your dad doesn't outrank the federal government." The officers weren't hesitating anymore. One started reading Karen her rights while the other moved toward the son. Karen thrashed, screaming, "No. You can't do this. We own everything here. We run this neighborhood." But the truth was already out. And this was only the beginning. The officers were walking Karen and her son toward the cruiser when her phone buzzed in her pocket. She yanked it out, screaming into the speaker, "Get here now. He's still here." Within minutes, another car roared up the dirt road, not a marked police car, but a black SUV with flashing knockoff lights stuck on the dash. Two men jumped out in fake uniforms, badges clipped to their belts that didn't shine the way real ones do. Karen grinned through the cuffs. "There. My backup. These are the real cops. They'll prove you're lying." The actual officers looked stunned. "What the hell is this?" one muttered. The fake cops stormed forward, barking orders. "Release them." This man is impersonating an officer and interfering with HOA law. We'll take it from here. Karen sneered, see? I told you I run this neighborhood. He's finished. But I didn't flinch. I pulled a second ID wallet from my pocket and snapped it open, this one marked Federal Operations Command. The fake cops froze. Their faces drained of color the moment they realized what they'd walked into. You boys picked the wrong night to play dress up, I said quietly. The real officers turned on the imposters, shouting, hands up. Now. Within seconds, the fake cops were on the ground. Disarmed and cuffed, right alongside Karen and her son. Karen's voice broke into a desperate wail. This isn't fair. You don't understand, I control this whole community. You can't stop us. I stepped close, my voice low but sharp. You thought you could bully your neighbors. Fake the law, even hijack a federal cabin. But here's the truth, you never had control. You just had noise. And tonight, that noise ends. The officers shut the cruiser doors on Karen and her son. Their screams echoing into the night. The fake cops were hauled into the second vehicle. Silent now, knowing their game was over. I stood by the lake as the flashing lights faded down the road. The water was calm, the cabin safe again. And for the first time in weeks, the air felt clean. I whispered to myself. Not for anyone else to hear. I didn't fight for this country to let people like them steal what's ours. Then I locked the cabin door, knowing justice had finally been served.